What's good, y'all? It's Drew here, back with another video. So today we're doing a different type of video. Well, it's slightly different. Today I want to be comparing like OG Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, and basically, telling you which one I think is better. So, question of the day to anyone who watches this video: do you like Naruto more, OG Naruto more, or do you like Shippuden more? So, comment that down below before you watch this video. After watching the video, comment down below if you like Naruto or Shippuden more, and then watch this video. And if you think that the points I gave for your favorite of the two was correct or was wrong, let me know down below. This is obviously a fan requested topic, so someone in the comments recommended it, and I thought it was a really good idea. So if you have a video idea that you want me to talk about or something, just let me know in the comments, and I'll probably respond. I'll respond to you and let you know if I think I could do it or not. But so Naruto and Shippuden. So that's actually a pretty good question because like I grew up on Naruto. Like that was probably the first anime I really saw. Like that Naruto was like when you say, oh, that's like my childhood, so to speak. All right, so with Naruto and Shippuden, it's really interesting because I feel like the general populace likes Naruto a lot more. Naruto's always looked in more of a positive light than Shippuden. Whereas with Shippuden, people will talk about they'll talk about the filler, they'll talk about the war arc, the misusing of characters. But Naruto doesn't really get that kind of treatment. And because of that, it makes it an interesting conversation. Let's start with music. With music, obviously, music can affect the vibe of the anime, right? Like music will help a scene if it's trying to be sad. If it's really great sad music, it adds to the scene. Obviously Naruto's about courage and stuff like that. When they're trying to convey a person about to go off, they have music for that. One thing Naruto did really, really well is each character, for the most part, kind of had their own like theme music. Like you can go back and remember Shikamaru's music. That's one that I remember that stands out. It's like really strategic sounding. And then you talk about like Rock Lee music, Sasuke's theme, and we talk about Naruto's theme. All the main characters had a theme, and that kind of gave you it made you like resonate with the person. Like the theme, it felt like it fit the person. But looking at the music aspects of Naruto and Shippuden, I think I'm gonna give it a Shippuden because obviously you could say it's unfair advantage because Shippuden has more like actual openings. I think if you look at the Naruto Shippuden openings, they have like 20 openings, whereas like OG Naruto, they only have about 9. But so I think Naruto Shippuden openings have more bangers on them. The best songs are on Shippuden. So if we're talking about just strictly like music, we're talking about like some people like to listen to the soundtrack of some anime like on their own time. Like if we're talking about that, I think Shippuden has more better songs to listen to it like that. The next one I'm gonna do is we can do character development, which is really important in anime. Character development can honestly, like I talked about I think I talked about in my Water 7 video. Character development can turn a great anime to an all-time one. Like we saw that, and even using other examples, character development is what keeps shows from being repetitive. Like a lot of people have a problem with Dragon Ball Z or the Dragon Ball series. And their big problem with that is, Goku doesn't change, and a lot of the other characters, they don't develop. They don't get a lot of, attention. Naruto Shippuden, a lot of the show it's like Naruto and Sasuke, and then everyone else is just below them. Like it's tough, but like these are the facts. I can't speak on that. But with Naruto, like I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of fans of Naruto. A lot of people don't even have Naruto or Sasuke as their favorite characters. Like I know a friend that's his favorite character. A lot of people love Rock Lee. Like especially what Rock Lee did in like against Gaara, like Naruto, like the OG Naruto, they gave a lot more characters love, and like you could have multiple favorite characters and it not be crazy, and even there were multiple characters that got shine or got really really cool moments and didn't feel like they were second class citizens. So I spoke about Rock Lee, right? Shoot, ask a lot of Naruto fans. Rock Lee versus Gaara, that's the best fight. Some people say the whole franchise, but a lot of people say in Naruto, that's the best fight. Look at Neji. Neji had a fight against one of the Sound 4. His name's escaping me right now, but that was a really good fight. Choji. Choji's not a fan favorite, but a lot of people love that fight he had against the Sound 4. Like the whole Sasuke retrieval arc is a great arc because Naruto is a big focus, of course, Sasuke as well. But every person that comes with Naruto has their own fight and a really good fight at that. And then on the character development, so we can start with what like Haku and Zabuza, which is like the first big arc, right? That's character development because We see what happens to Zabuza and how Zabuza is at the beginning of the show, or the beginning of the arc, where he's talking about how ninja are just tools and he doesn't care about anyone, even Haku. And then towards the end of the arc, when he's about to die, he feels a different type of way, and that's development. That's simple as that. And even with Haku and Zabuza, most Naruto fans know that Haku and Zabuza are the reason Naruto's ninja way was like that. That's why he started his ninja way, because of that, because of his experience with them. And that's some character development that is really profound. The best example probably is Gaara. So if you watch Naruto OG, look at him in the Chunin exams arc, and then at the end, he changes like a lot. And with Naruto, none of the changes to me were ever so like crazy or unreasonable. Like, there were always great moments. There usually were great fights that corresponded with it. And because of that, everyone could understand how the character got to the point. Like, if I just showed you a scene from, Gaara when he was on his crazy stuff, when Gaara was acting different and like basically like a sociopath, and then show him protecting Rock Lee, you're gonna think there's no way that these two characters could be the same. But if you like watching the series and episode by episode, seeing how Gaara changes when he fights Naruto, and Naruto explains that they're very similar, and you see how Gaara's way of living changes, that the character development on Naruto is amazing. Now, Naruto Shippuden has some good character development, I think, as well. Like, people don't like Sasuke, but I think his character development it was a lot more roundabout of a way, but I think it was a realistic turn of events. I feel like with Sasuke, a lot of people like to act like he was some like sociopath, some crazy guy from the beginning, when I feel like people kind of undermine what happened to him. Like, he has a top 5 like tragedy in anime. Like, I don't have to really get into it, but I'm already here. We're talking about Sasuke and Itachi. I'm gonna talk about Itachi. Itachi's character development really was, if we're gonna be honest, that was all Shippuden. Because in Naruto, we just saw him as the bad guy, right? That Sasuke had to beat or whatever. We didn't know any of his motives. But in Shippuden, Itachi turned from arguably one of the more hated characters to easily one of the most loved characters. When you look at Shippuden, there's characters like Nagato, right? Where like Itachi, he seems like this sociopathic person, but he ends up having, you could argue, the wrong point of view, sure, but it's not a point of view that's crazy. Like, when he breaks down with his reasoning and what he thinks, trying to explain why he's wrong, it's not easy to do. You could tell he was a very well put together character. As with even Obito. Like, Obito, people don't like his motives and stuff, like what happened with Rin and stuff, which, I mean, I can understand that. But I feel like Obito was a great parallel to Naruto. Even in Shippuden, they like to highlight that, where Naruto and Obito start out in the same place, but Obito ended up in a completely different way of living than Naruto did. Like, he was the opposite of Naruto, like how Naruto wasn't trying to end out. Kind of similar to Gaara, but it was even closer, because like Naruto and Obito, they both had the goals of being Hokage. They both wore goggles. It was like, because in Naruto, they all talk about wills and stuff. Like, in the Team Minato, Obito was that version of Naruto. So, honestly, that was really good as well. So, when I'm breaking it down like that, I feel like in Shippuden, the enemies had better character development. Like, if you look at Madara, Obito, Itachi, Nagato, these enemies, they're more complex than Naruto and Naruto's enemies. Orochimaru, like, he was not a redeemable character. Like, there was no really character to him, you know what I mean? He wasn't as intricate or complex as the other ones in Shippuden. Naruto was a lot shorter. There were less enemies and less threats. But Shippuden had a lot more characters a lot more enemies that were complex. Like I told you, Obito in them. Whereas Naruto, I feel like the main, like the protagonist and the main cast had more development. And there were more characters that had more significance. So we know Kakashi, in Shippuden, he got like his character development when we find out what happened with Rin and everything, and how he became to be, basically. But with Shippuden, even with Kakashi, Sasuke, and Naruto, who I think all got good character development, all the characters that Naruto gave development for, like the show, the development dropped off. Like, Choji had good development, it dropped off. Kiba had good development, dropped off. Gaara, his development I think was cool, but it was an incline, and it just it mellowed out. Rock Lee dropped off a cliff development. Neji, his development dropped off, and then he killed him off, and it was like his death. I think Neji's death, it wasn't as impactful because we had not like gotten his character in so long. It didn't hit as hard as if it would have if they had killed him off in OG Naruto. If you look at Shippuden, I feel like Shippuden gets kind of underrated in how much development it gets, because people will talk about Naruto and how it gets so much more development, and that's what I thought coming into this video. When we talk about character development, You know, Naruto finna smash that. Like Kiba, Rock Lee, like there's characters I can name them. But when you look at Shippuden and look at every single arc, you're hard pressed to find an arc that doesn't have a character that get a lot of development. So you can look at the Hidan and Kakuzu arc, Shikamaru gets development. Then you look at like the Sasori arc, Sakura gets some development. A lot of characters get development in Shippuden, and I think that's kind of underrated. And if we're looking at the main cast, a lot of characters in Shippuden dropped off a cliff. Like, we can't deny that. Like, obviously Rock Lee and Choji and those characters. So just looking at like the main like entire cast, I'm gonna have to give it to OG Naruto. Just because in OG Naruto, I feel like every character got a good amount of representation. Like every character felt like a character, and they felt like they all got their time to shine. And while in Shippuden, most of the characters that they introduced, or even some of the older characters they gave a lot of development, there were a lot of characters that kind of dropped off. Like I told you, like Rock Lee and Choji. Next, I'm gonna talk about storyline. So with storyline, you know, we talk about the plot of the show. Like we talk about from beginning to end, every arc, how good it, like, you know, collectively how good it was and stuff like that. So with the plot of Naruto and Shippuden, it's important to note that in Shippuden, they had a bigger goal they were trying to reach. Like the story was just overall bigger. The number of arcs was a lot more. Each arc was different than, whereas OG Naruto, there's like 3 or 4 major arcs. But in Shippuden, it's a couple. Like we're talking about, you have the Pain arc, then you have the Itachi arc, then you have the War arc, and there's even little arcs in between that too. So I feel like Shippuden had to cover a lot more ground, but I mean, I can only judge what's in front of me. With OG Naruto, it was more of a constant level of quality, right? OG Naruto never really dropped off in terms of quality. Like there's not an arc that is a consensus like not good or bad arc. Like you can think. So we talking about the Sasuke retrieval arc. That's an amazing arc. Chunin exams, fire arc. No one can speak on that. Then we're talking about Land of Waves, fire arc. Whereas Shippuden has some really, in my opinion, S-class arcs, but there are some arcs that, you know, that take a hit from, you know, whether we're talking about convolutedness. I'm not even counting filler, like things, just, you know, some mishaps here and there that honestly affect the quality of the arc. Some S-class arcs, obviously the whole Itachi arc, that was S-class. The Pain arc, S-class. But then there are arcs that, you know, that I don't think are not as good as, you know, other ones. So if we're looking at like the War arc, I like the War arc personally. That's one of my favorite arcs. But just objectively speaking, the War arc is not as good as the other arcs. It's really long. A lot of things that happen in are not as important as others. It honestly depends on what you want. Like a better example is Shippuden has like peaks and valleys. There's a lot more peaks in Shippuden than there is in Naruto, in my opinion. But Shippuden has, you know, a lot more valleys. Like there are some arcs, like the War arc, it's very, very long. The War arc is long. And sometimes you might get lost in the sauce in it. If I'm giving it to Spot, I gotta give it to Naruto. Just because when we're talking about plot, an important thing to note is how, like, we're talking about the consistency of it, right? With the plot, it's gotta make sense the whole way throughout. It's gotta fill up the story, complete it to a degree. And a problem that happened with Shippuden that they kind of messed up at the end that I can't really ignore is first of all, it's the whole Kaguya thing. And then it's also Naruto and Sasuke being the descendant of Kaguya and Ashura. Naruto Sasuke being the descendant of Indra and Ashura. So, like, in the beginning, OG Naruto set up the theme, which was, you know, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that was a theme that OG Naruto held all the way through. Like, we saw how nice Rock Lee got. Rock Lee didn't beat Gaara, that's true. But Rock Lee really beat Gaara, you hear me? Like, he didn't defeat him, but he beat him. Like, he beat Gaara senselessly. Like, we saw how that was Gaara's that was just straight Rock Lee hard work. Rock Lee just put in the work. That was just Rock Lee. You know, Naruto's like the best example, honestly, right? Naruto was not good at anything at the beginning of the show. By the end of the show, he's hanging with everyone, right? He beat up Gaara, right? Beat up Neji, 2 prodigies. Even Sasuke, he's a prodigy, beat up Sasuke. Well, not in the last fight, but he's still always contending with Sasuke despite not being nearly as talented. And even then, like, Naruto had the 9-tailed, like, Tia Kurama, right? The Kyuubi. You could say, oh, that takes away from him, you know, having to, him for his talent or whatever, him having to work hard. You could say that, but we saw that, one, having Kyuubi actually made it harder for him, right? Because of the chakra control. He obviously had trouble he had trouble with his chakra control. I think Jiraiya said it as well, just because he had the Kyuubi. One, he had actually trained to get better at using the Kyuubi's chakra. Like, he trained with Jiraiya for a little bit to learn how to seep in the chakra and use it to his own will. And he still had to learn techniques. Like, he had to learn the summon jutsu. That's something he had to learn. There was Sengon. He had a whole training, a mini training arc just to learn that. Like, these are techniques he had to learn, get better at. So that's something that Shippuden, I think they did a decent job, but towards the end they kind of messed it up. Having the whole thing about, you know, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, it's good until you have the main two characters be this, like, the literal son of gods. It makes people who watch the show step back and look at it like, I mean, y'all said that about working hard, but like, these Naruto, was he always going to be nice because he's the son of a god? He's the reincarnation of a god. Like, it doesn't matter anymore, right? And that's something that is, even though it's at the end and you could say, oh, it's just one part, what makes it so bad is that, like, one, it's at the end of the story, and two, it's the culmination of everything. Like, we're talking about, this is like Naruto's main theme. If I ask someone what is Naruto's main theme in the series, that's one of the things they're going to say. That's the top three things they're going to say. They're probably going to say, Ayo, the top, you know, Naruto, it's, if we're talking about Naruto, it's definitely, you know, about working hard, and, you know, you can be as good as you want. All you got to do is try. But in Shippuden, it's like, not only does it make it rough, but even in Shippuden, Naruto and Sasuke were the only ones getting love. They're the only main protagonists that were getting a lot of attention. Like, they beat most of, if not all, the enemies, you know what I mean? Like, Sasuke obviously had not even Sasuke. Sakura had a person she beat by herself, but for the most part, if you listed all of the evil villains in Naruto Shippuden, Naruto Sasuke got like at least 80% of them collectively. So that makes it tough. And then you come to find out that they're the son of God. It's like, bro, that's kind of, it's like, it's bad. And I didn't even mention, like, Kekkai Genkai, right? Where in OG Naruto, Kekkai Genkai is the thing that everyone has, and everyone's Kekkai Genkai is unique. And you can't really say one's better than the other, because we see that either people without Kekkai Genkais are tough, or people that, you know, their Kekkai Genkai doesn't seem as cool. They're still clean. But in Shippuden, you know, in OG Naruto, the Byakugan was seen as the superior jutsu to the Sharingan, right? People thought it was better. But in Shippuden, that stuff stopped. Like, in Shippuden, the only good Kekkai Genkai was like the Sharingan, was in Uchiha. If you weren't an Uchiha and you weren't a Tail Beast, after a while you just couldn't keep up. Like, people like Shikamaru or Choji, they're not gonna be in as many fights as Naruto and Sasuke anymore, because they're not Uchiha and they're not Tail Beast. And you could talk about like Sakura or something, but Sakura being in Team 7, she got a lot of like upgrades to keep up with those two. And she's the exception, not the rule, unfortunately. So, looking at all that collectively, Naruto has to take plot. In anime, most anime have people boxing, right? You know, everyone loves to see hands getting thrown. So, I think one of the most important parts of anime, depending on the genre, of course, but this is a shonen, and shonen, there's always going to be hands thrown. So in shonen anime specifically, the quality of the hands thrown is a very important aspect, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the fighting. So with Naruto and Shippuden, there are some elite fights all around, right? Both of these, you know, halves of the same show have elite fighting. So we're talking about, obviously, I mentioned this like maybe twice now, 3 times. Rock Lee versus Gaara, that's an elite fight. No one can say anything about that fight. Valley of the End, Naruto and Sasuke in OG Naruto, elite fight. Naruto versus Gaara, that's another elite fight scene. Like, Orochimaru versus the Third Hokage, that's an elite fight scene. Naruto got some bangers, but the thing is, I think Shippuden just has way more bangers. So a problem with the fighting, this is kind of part of plot that people have, is that with Shippuden, the fight scenes, like in OG Naruto, all the fight scenes for the most part, they have some like jutsu and stuff, some, you know, chakra and things, but a lot of it is hands, and a lot of it is like, you know, it's like actual martial arts, you know. Look at OG Naruto Sasuke. That fight's mostly hands. They're just throwing straight taijutsu, straight hands. But in Shippuden, there are some fights that there are some fights that have a lot of like straight, you know, chakra usage, and some people have a problem with that, honestly. Some people think it's too like Dragon Ball Z, like too much like Dragon Ball Z, and they don't like that. But even with that in mind, there are fights that have a smaller amount of that and are still bangers. So for Shippuden, Sasuke versus Itachi, that's a straight banger. That's a lot. That's a lot of taijutsu. If you want taijutsu, that fight has a lot of it. That fight had all three: taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. Naruto versus Pain, that fight is an absolute banger. Like, we see that fight, if you combine the Naruto aspect and then when he turns to the Nine Tails and when he starts transforming, that's an amazing fight. And there's not that much like chakra usage. Like, it's a lot of it's just throwing hands. Naruto versus Sasuke in the Valley of the End, the second time in Shippuden. That's an elite fight. That fight at the beginning, it's a lot of, you know, chakra usage and stuff. But towards the end of the fight and in the middle, not that much. It's not that much chakra usage. It's just hands. And that's what a lot of people like, so that's a really good fight as well. They both have elite fights, but with Shippuden, like I just spoke on, I think Shippuden has more S-class fights. Like I told you, all those fights I just gave in mind. And you look at the War Arc, the War Arc has like 10 or so fights that are really good. Like the War Arc, each main character has a really good fight. So Gaara has a pretty good fight with his father, right? Then we see what Madara, first of all, Madara pulls up on the scene on all the hidden leaf villagers. Tough. Madara versus Madara and Obito versus Naruto and the gang, like Kakashi and Guy and them. Tough. My Guy versus Madara. Tough. Like, it's a lot of tough fights, and this is just the War Arc alone. Kakashi versus Obito. We talk about straight hands. You want almost all hands. That's a fight with mostly hands. Like, what's another fight? Oh, Obito, like Madara with like one eye or no eyes versus like the whole cast. The War Arc had elite bangers, and that's why, despite what people think of the War Arc, I think the War Arc's pretty good, to be honest, in my opinion. Like, the War Arc had a lot of elite moments, and when you look at the totality, you know, it does kind of suffer, but I just think that Shippuden had better fights overall. Like, I think they had more meaningful fights, and they had better choreographed fights. So when I'm talking about more meaning, I'm talking about like Sasuke and Itachi. We know how much that fight, the build of that fight was. You could argue obviously that OG Naruto set up all the build up for that fight. That's fair. I'm not gonna get mad at that. But then you look at like Naruto versus Pain, all that build up was in Shippuden. The Sasuke and Naruto fight, I'm not gonna that fight is, you know, you can argue that the build up is from OG Naruto. So there's that. But just looking at all the fights and obviously the choreography, that's another point I have to speak on. Like Kakashi Obito, the choreography on that fight is amazing. It's top tier. Naruto Sasuke, after their energy's basically gone, they're fighting just hands. Choreography is top tier. And then we'll talk about Sasuke Itachi. The fight, just the hands, straight hands, no energy, top tier. So when we're looking at that, I think Shippuden it doesn't hands down take it, but I think Shippuden definitely takes the fighting aspect of that. Looking at the two anime. See, that's the thing with Naruto Shippuden. Like I think Shippuden is looked like, if you were to grade, if you ask like 100 anime fans which one they think is better between Shippuden and Naruto, they're definitely gonna say Naruto. I think they would definitely say Naruto, in my opinion. I think that they would think that the vibes are better. Like looking at Naruto, it was more of not a wholesome story, but it felt more of a complete story. Whereas Shippuden, there are times that it kind of turns you off. Like, a lot of people's problem with Shippuden is the amount of filler. And I didn't really talk about filler that much because when I watch anime, I don't watch filler. But like, you kind of can't ignore it to a degree because it's a part of the show. You know, you put up the episode list, the episodes, or some of them are filler. But then you get to the concept of, you know, look at only the manga because that's technically the real source material. And the anime is kind of, you know, it was kind of adapted. But even in the manga, like the War Arc and stuff, some of the stuff felt a little rushed. The War Arc is something that a lot of fans have a problem with. Like in the War Arc, I think that they didn't need to add as many things as they did. And obviously the whole Kaguya thing, like Kaguya should not have been an added thing. It messed up the whole feel of it. Whatever your emotions of the War Arc were, I think we can all pretty much agree that Madara was like, he had the best buildup of like the entire series. Because when you look at, from when we first was mentioned of him in the end of OG Naruto, right? Then in the beginning of Shippuden, we saw him, we didn't see him. Kurama spoke about him and compared Sasuke to him. Itachi brought him up. He got all these little hints and stuff like that. And just people like Obito, just taking Madara's name had people shook. Like that build up, and when Madara came up, when Madara pulled up on all the villagers and just gave them, like I said, fighting, absolute hands, no energy until the end of the fight, just straight hands dropping them off. I don't know if Naruto has a moment that was that hyped. Like Shippuden had a lot of hype moments, and the reason why this comparison is a little unfair is because Shippuden has like the build up from OG Naruto, but OG Naruto doesn't have the build up from Shippuden. So that's a little tough. Like Shippuden obviously has Itachi Sasuke, but that build up was earlier. But nonetheless, we talking about fight scenes. Shippuden has to take that. So I don't know if surprised most of y'all or not, but I prefer Shippuden more. Now, I feel like that's an unpopular opinion, right? Like that's not something most people agree with. I think most people would think that. Naruto's the better product. The Shippuden's more all over the place, and obviously to a degree, they're not wrong. I can see where they think that Shippuden's a lot less focused. Like the themes are they muddy up the themes and things like that a lot more. But I still think the moments, bro. Like Shippuden, I think it has, like I said, it's like peaks and valleys. The peaks are way higher, in my opinion. Some of the peaks are way higher than Naruto, but they do have valleys that are way lower than Naruto as well. But even with that, I personally pick Shippuden. Like me personally, just because of all the moments and even the characters that they introduced, I'll personally pick Shippuden as my favorite of the two. I'm personally going with Shippuden, to be honest. But let me know what y'all think down below. Let me know if you like Shippuden more or Naruto. Let me know what y'all think down below. But I'm out. Peace.